Griffin on the Abstrakt Podkast, and we're going to do something a little different today. We have Michael Ocean, founder of Aurora, that is also doing some real-time call coaching software. So I'm really excited to dive into kind of the mind of somebody who wanted to tackle this like we're tackling it, and all the craziness and challenges, trials and tribulations associated with it. So Michael, please take a moment and say hi.
Absolutely. Hey, Greg. Hey, everyone. Thanks very much for having me. So as you mentioned, two competitors sitting in front of each other, sharing thoughts, but it's a big ocean. There are tons of opportunities, and potentially we can help each other, create a new market. This is the way I look at it. And building a, sales platform or something that helps with sales enablement could go all ways. Like you have, let's say, gongs of the world. You can record calls. There are tons of tools out there right now. So it really boils down to help the frontliners, at least for myself, because there's a story, as of why we started Aurora AI, and I'm sure you have an interesting story to share as well. So happy to, kick started if that's okay with you.
Yeah. So let's. I think it's the genesis of software companies is always really interesting, especially for non-technical founders. And so, walk me through kind of how you got your career started in tech, and, as Steve Jobs would say, kind of looking back, what were those breadcrumbs that kind of led you to wanting to start Aurora?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a funny story because I was a musician. I had no idea about sales, and I got these allergic reactions to so many things. So I had to stop singing and playing music. And I grabbed a bunch of books, and I kept hearing from people around me that you're good at sales, go get a sales job. So my first sales job was a company named PCM, and we were selling Microsoft solutions. So cloud computing, Azure, to CTOs of Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 companies. And being honest, I hated that job. It was a corporate job, but the training was amazing. So that's how things just got started for me. And from then moving on, I started a few early stage startups, and we learned a lot. We failed a lot. We had some achievements. But then my last effort was with Hopin. I joined a company, Hopin, early. Then the company just raised Series A, and then it turned to 1,000 headcount company, and I guess the rest is history. And what I noticed inside Hopin was that we are using Gong to record these calls, and we have valuable data stored everywhere. But if we go back and listen to these calls and learn a few things, and let's say if we spend hours practicing it, are we going to be able to really adjust our language, our approach to sales, and apply it during the calls? And the answer was no. So surprisingly, chatting with other frontliners at Hopin, the same, story. Like, yes, we learned a lot. We, spent hours watching these videos or call recordings, but, applying new knowledge is another ballgame. So I decided to actually tackle this problem when I was at Hopin by talking, to people internally. Then I went out and took interview calls with sales leaders, in SaaS space. And what I noticed was they actually faced with the same challenge. They spend hours watching videos, but reps don't actually apply, let's say, their learnings during the calls. So we started a company named Sell Me This Pen with my co-founder. And we tried to do sales role plays at scale. So we said, maybe this way we can help people practice what they learn to get better. But sales managers didn't like it. It was like, yeah, I don't want to mandate, it's not part of my mandate. I don't want to coach my people. And then we said, what if we actually can help people on field? This is the best way they can learn. And everybody, agreed. So that's how Aurora was born. Said, hey, maybe we can actually help them while doing their job. So. Okay.
So you've seen Wolf of Wall Street, obviously, but you've not seen Ocean's 11. So I just want to throw that out there. Okay. And a reminder, Michael's last name is Ocean for listeners trying to understand why that context matters. Okay. So you experienced the same problem. right? Where there's hours and hours of video and recording. But the problem is, right? Like we have a bad day, right? You don't sleep the night before. Maybe you just got tore up by a prospect and you're heading into your next call. Everything that you spent weeks and months learning, the moment that stress reaction kicks in, right? You forget everything you learned. And it's fascinating because most cars nowadays have automatic braking, right? We've spent hours, months, and years of our life learning to drive and paying attention while we're driving, yet we still rely on technology to help us in situations where maybe things aren't perfect. And so you firsthand experience that as well, right? And you can relate to that. So I love that. We share a similar story there. So how long has Aurora been in business? When did you start Aurora?
It's a good question. Again, this is our third iteration. We started about 9 months ago where I left, helping. And then we had to learn while changing, the solution based on, feedback we're receiving from our clients. And Aurora itself been around for 2 months. We have the first layer of the product nailed. So we can actually transcribe conversation and based on keywords, give prompts to reps. But we are looking actually at building something a little bit different compared to what's out there. So typically what we see is, most companies are really focused on structure, on science of sales, follow, this scripts or ask these good questions or add your methodology to the call. But there is an art to sales as well, it better. So that artistry part, what we are trying to do is that we get prompt about that as well. Read the room. You have 3, 4, let's say, stakeholders on the call. You only, spend hours talking, minutes talking to Greg. How about the other person? You're talking too fast. People are not engaged. So we are trying to combine art and science of sales at the same time, but again, work in progress.
Nice. Okay. What so I know firsthand kind of some of the pains associated with trying to do this, but what have been some of the hurdles that you guys have faced as you've kind of gone through V1 of the product and gathering some user feedback and getting some real life kind of usage of the product?
Good question. Obviously, training the models, I should say, is the hardest part, but now focusing on the technology. And I think the biggest challenge, at least for me personally, is when you try to get people on top of funnel and you get compared with, let's say, call recording tools like Gong. Oh, this is another Gong. We already use Gong or we already use Chorus. So basically have a very clear and sharp value proposition that people understand, because this is still new to so many organizations. It's been around for years, better, like for call centers or, data centers, people are using this for more B2C environments, but in SaaS or, more B2B space, it's still something new that people need to learn about.
Yeah. So you bring up such an interesting point because like you said, it's been in call centers, it's been overseas in those, agent models with insurance companies and financial companies. We use it in our consumer lives every single day with our cars and our home automation. We talk to it in our phones. And yet in B2B sales, it's almost like this, ooh, why would you want to use that type of technology? And getting people to wrap their heads around not only the fact that it exists, but how they could apply it is a challenge, right? It's an educational type of thing, right? I like to think about kind of I was one of the very early users of Gong, Michael, and I remember being in a team meeting where our manager talked about Gong, and it was faced with such adversity because no one wanted their calls recorded. Everyone was like, oh, I don't need my calls recorded. I don't want managers listening to my calls. I take good enough notes. And so I feel like it's this kind of natural kind of progression. If you ever read Crossing the Chasm, you kind of got to kind of ride that wave up that bell curve to get to the point where it becomes adopted. And so I think it's just time, right, for both of us getting the market educated as to what technologies like Aurora can do before, it replaces tools like Gong and Chorus.
Absolutely, absolutely. You just nailed it. I guess
Yeah.
that's definitely a challenge that I personally face as well, how to really educate the market. So I guess having these conversations like we're having right now can potentially help people understand, why tools like, let's say, Abstrakt or Aurora should exist in the first place. So.
Yeah, absolutely. What over the past, almost coming up on a year now, what have been maybe the best surprises that you've had? I know most startups are all kind of down, getting kicked in the teeth, crawling through the trenches, but what's been a surprise? What's been good over the past, almost a year now?
Good question. Tons of learnings, obviously. Again, we iterate 3 times while talking to a lot of people. Try to, onboard new clients, just listen to them basically. And one shocking factor is that after we ran over 150 plus calls with end users of tools like Gong or Chorus or other, call recording softwares, that reps spend average 5-6 hours a week, if not more, listening to these calls. They still, carry their spreadsheet or having the notes and try to remember things, because these are fast-growing technology companies. They acquire companies. They release new, let's say, features. The pricing model changes sometimes. You have new competitors. So tons of information will be, thrown at the reps with expectations to, you need to know everything and talk perfectly. But when that fight and flight moment happens during the call, everything is gone. So that's one thing to, that we realize after chatting with people, it's, yeah.
Yeah. So it's fascinating. We did some similar type of like user story collection when we were launching Abstrakt. And I would ask people like, how much time do you listen to call recordings? And they'd be like, oh, not as much as I should. Or maybe once a month I'll sit down for a couple hours. Or, I let the system tag me in calls I should pay attention to. And then I'd be like, okay, so those emails that you get notifications on, do those go to like a special folder in your inbox? And they're like, oh yeah, that folder. I never go in that folder anymore. And it's and when you realize, like, we just took a customer from Chorus last week, and they said Chorus had turned into a fancy call recording tool because there was so much in there that I couldn't review it all. The system wasn't smart enough to tell me what to do, and my reps still made the same mistakes. And so I think it's the kind of the behavior of all these calls that need to be recorded now to then go be analyzed. It's created like this ancillary problem that isn't solved by more dashboards and more reports and more analytics. It's solved by companies like Aurora and Abstrakt, who are now taking that and delivering that into the moment when it needs to happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah. When you think about like surprises, what about like from the technology standpoint? Was there something that maybe you guys struggled through? And you don't have to give me specifics, but maybe like you were surprised it worked as well as it did, or you were like, like that was kind of cool. I didn't know we could do that type of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing is latency. So really picking up these keywords at the right time so you can give sharp answers, specific help to reps so they don't get confused. Another thing was distraction. Like many sales leaders were worried about getting distracted during the call. Say, hey, my reps are going to get distracted. But designing the tool the way it's simple and easy to use, and we came up with this idea just to make it as simple as a plugin, like a Chrome extension, so reps can just simply, remove it. It always, runs in the background. When they need help, it's just like having a senior rep or manager sitting on the call. Yeah, and they can just open it up and read it. So these are 2 things I can mention. In terms of building the technology itself, not, I don't want to get into details, but for the art end, reading the room, really going through this like facial recognition and trying to, match that with the voice, because sometimes like in sales, you hear things, but people are not necessarily that engaged or happy about the situation. So I might say, yeah, it sounds interesting. It's really cool. I want to learn more, but the tone
Your
is
body
really,
language and tone say something
like,
completely
oh,
different.
please just finish this call. So we are trying to, match that and figure that out, and that's challenging.
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned latency. I mean, we operate in a world, Michael, where latency is not allowed, right? Like when you're doing something in real time, you can't afford for there to be any delay. And so solving for that has been for sure a fun challenge and a nice surprise when it does work. So let's talk about the future, right? So we kind of Gong's gone on this like 7-8 year evolution. Real-time call coaching software is at the very early stages of kind of where Gong was 7 or 8 years ago. And so when you think about how technologies like ours look like 7 or 8 years from now, like the rate of technology doubles every year. And so it's kind of, I don't think we can wrap our heads around actually what technology can be like in 7 or 8 years, but what's kind of your vision for how AI and machine learning and this real-time technology that we're developing plays a role in sales, let's say 7 or 8 years from now?
That's a very interesting question. The way I look at it is this way, or maybe this is my hope. Sales is a high-performing career, and the way we are looking at it today is like an order taking, even in like best SaaS companies in the world. Follow the steps. Do this, and then you'll be fine. And it's not just about that. It's about understanding how to really have a good conversation with a person in front of you. Be human. Have empathy. So teaching that is extremely difficult itself, but at the same time, reps have to deal with a lot of distractions. Okay. Now you have new tools. We have onboarding for a new company we just acquired. Go, spend 70% of your time prospecting because we don't have good leads and MQLs coming in, to your pipe. So I think, again, this is mainly my hope, and hopefully the future will be close to that. Reps will focus on selling and doing their high-performing job like an athlete. Go inside the ring and learn how to actually, do your part rather than doing tons of other things at the same time. So hopefully in the future we can automate things like, giving some prep works, giving some information about, someone's persona, or, new updates about their companies during the calls. So this way they don't need to be worried about pre-call or post-call, go and watch these videos and analyze everything and wait for one-on-one with your manager. So they're really focused on one thing and performing like an athlete rather than, getting distracted with so many other things.
I love that. Right. It's everybody, like my dad, he still doesn't like the fact I'm in sales. He thinks that I'm going to turn into be a used car salesman at some point. I think he thinks everybody in sales turned into be a used car salesperson. And I know there's a big stigma around that. Like people, you say, I'm in software sales. And they instantly go, oh, hold on, like you're a salesperson. I don't want to talk to you. But I think the sales professional, if we use that word intentionally, is somebody that trains and practices and devotes time to perfecting their craft and understands how technology can be used to accelerate their ability to perform better and fill in maybe those time-consuming pre-call research steps that aren't fun to do, but today they're necessary evil. So yeah, I think there's some validity to that. Kind of wrapping this up, Michael, I was talking with our attorneys last week, and one of the attorneys asked me, he's like, hey, Greg, like if you would have known how hard this was 2 years ago, would you still have done it? And I think there's a part of me that's glutton for punishment and enjoys it. So probably, but most people, like, it sucks, right? There's a lot of hard days. And so if you could give maybe some pieces of advice to some future founders who are thinking about competing against their version of Gong or Chorus in the world, right? Knowing that that's a huge mountain to tackle, what might be a couple things that you would want to tell them that maybe you wish you would have known a couple of years ago?
Good question. There are a few things, but I'm going to start with this one. One thing is truly listen to people. So we keep talking about this active listening, but even myself, like I'm guilty of it. Like really listen, not just hear, not just record and analyze later. Listen, because they tell you about the solution better than anybody else. But at the same time, be very careful because sometimes they don't know. So especially when you're creating something, new, many people don't know about it. Like it's you get this surprising, factor when you go on calls with clients. They're like, oh, is it possible to do that? But at the same time, their pain points do exist. So see if you can, through technology, can really tackle those problems and help them, achieve success. So listen, so you don't have to iterate a few times like we did, but we did it fast and we are happy with, what happened. But at the same time, you can avoid, all this lengthy process of going back and forth and iterating and all that stuff. This is part of it anyways, but again, yeah, you can do a better job with my idea. Another thing is just know what you're getting into. Like you said, you're having this mindset because some days I wake up and you feel bad and you're like, shoot, what the hell are we doing here? Because for a month you might not get even like a client or, get any positive feedback. Just know why you started this. It could be personal, it could be bigger picture, whatever the why is for you that keeps you motivated to move forward. Otherwise, you're going to break. Whether you build, Abstrakt, Aurora, or anything else, startups are difficult and you get discouraged and you stop. So,
yeah. So going back to that first point, Henry Ford has a famous quote, Michael, if I would ask people what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse, right? And so most sales leaders, they want more in-depth dashboards, right? If you ask them what they want, Steve Jobs, if you would have asked people what people wanted, they would have said, I want, a phone call that's more reliable. You had to tell them, no, you want access to music, you want access to the internet, you want all of that with the swipe of a thumb. And so kind of falls on shoulders of, individuals like us to kind of tell people what they want sometimes while listening to what their problems are that they're trying to solve for. So I think I 1000% agree with you there. Don't be afraid to tell people no, you don't want a faster horse. You just want to get to where you're going faster. And what if I can help that? And to that point about know what you're getting yourself into, I might disagree with you a little bit there because I don't think there's anything you can do to prepare to know what you're getting yourself into until you've done it. I can talk with founders, I can talk with people. I cannot tell you what it feels like to be on the floor in tears crying because you spent 2 days trying to get something to work in preparation for a demo that didn't go well, knowing that you have 2 weeks of runway left. You can't mentally prepare for that until you've done it.
That's a good point. It's the third time for me, so maybe I don't use it.
But go sit in a bathtub full of ice for 2 weeks and then have someone tell you to go run a marathon and then go public speaking in a Speedo in front of 2,000 people and do all that, right? Do all that for 2 weeks straight on no sleep. Then you might be prepared to run your own startup company. Maybe. So Michael, I appreciate you chatting with us. If anybody wants to get a hold of you, learn more about Aurora, what's the best way to do that?
Absolutely. You can reach out directly on LinkedIn, Michael Ocean, search for, I'll be more than happy to connect with anyone. And if you want to make it more official, my email is michael@meetaurora.ai, and you can reach me out that way as well.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate you spending some time with us on the Abstrakt Podcast today, and definitely excited to see if we can make this real-time call coaching segment of the market maybe its own G2 crowd, listing. Let's get conversational intelligence to be a thing of the past. What do you say?
Absolutely. I'm down. Let's go.
Cool. Take it easy, Mike. We'll talk soon.
Thanks for having me, Greg. All the best.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.